This head baseball coach at Ole Miss coming off a weekend where the Rebels got one on the road against the Georgia Bulldogs in the final game of the three-game series. Coach, kind of up and down at times, didn't play very well this weekend. At times played really well, especially in that last game. Certainly good to salvage the final game, but I guess mixed results.
No doubt, and we're at where we're at, and you gotta win some games, and we got off to on Friday night. I thought the first few innings we played well, and I thought Riley was really sharp, and then all of a sudden that's happened to us, and we've seen it. We just kind of blow up an inning, and really it was the defense that was the culprit, I think, on Friday night. He was so good, but the defense really made him have to pitch a lot harder than, and make some quality pitches that you shouldn't have to make that early in a game or that many, man. So that game gets away from us. And then we get a great performance by Doyle. But then, the bullpen kind of failed us, and we get to the later innings where we're in the game, and we just can't get them off the field offensively. And then, of course, in Game 3, proud of the way we hung in there. The guys continue to compete, and against a really good offensive Georgia team, I thought we pitched it really well in Game 3. So the bright spot was we were able to salvage one. But we have to play better, as you mentioned.
You don't have that often that you play a doubleheader, especially a 9-inning doubleheader, and maybe even less where you have a guy that pitches in both of those games. Austin Simmons gives you an inning and 2/3, only threw 24 pitches in the first game of the doubleheader, and then he comes back and gives you a really, really high leverage inning in that second game of the doubleheader with a couple of big punch-outs.
Yeah, proud of him, and you can see why why we're so high on him, and why we think his ceiling as a baseball player can be so high. A kid that just finished the spring game last weekend, and literally has done both sports, and being a quarterback and competing at that position, and especially with Jackson Dart missing a lot of the spring practices and reps, he was kind of the guy out there this spring, and so obviously that slows his baseball, I think, progression. But we all understand that he wants to do both, and I say all of that just because he comes out on Saturday and pitches really well in a relief spot, but the game's kind of a little bit out of hand by the time he gets in there, but pitches really well, holds them at bay. And then, between games, he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Coach, I just want you to know that I can go the second game. I feel great." And, he didn't have to do that, and there's, there takes special kids that want to do that. And I don't mean selfishly. I mean just the guts to do it. He already pitched his inning and 2/3, as you mentioned, of scoreless ball, and, he can just kind of chalk it up as a, nice outing and, maybe get him next weekend. And he didn't. He wanted to be out there. He wanted to compete, and you got to respect that. And obviously, we needed him in that Game 3.
You've had a few guys that have done this through the years, not a ton, but a few who have played two sports. Can you help us understand what the load is that those guys are carrying, especially when you talk about quarterback in one of the two sports?
Well, I think that the load for him is a lot different than it was for Plumlee and Ely and, Sinquez Golson and, even Steph Smith, because, when Seth was a baseball player, he did nothing but baseball. Like, he didn't go to spring practice. I mean, he just did the baseball deal. This is a guy that, is because of he's a quarterback and the nature of that position, I would assume, I'm not a quarterback or a football coach, there's just so much on him. And so, he's trying to learn stuff in the mornings and run their reps. And there's times where, he doesn't come to practice, or he comes and throws a bullpen and has to leave and go back to a meeting over there. And I think for him, the load has been different, for this spring than any other kid we've had. I think the toughest thing that people don't realize is it's really hard to do either of these sports at this level, to be a college SEC football player or to be a college baseball player in the Southeastern Conference, and he's doing them both, and so what I mean by that is most of them get the rest in the spring, go to spring practice for a few weeks, get in the weight room, kind of get your body back in, your mind, and all of that. Well, he's out on the baseball field, and as a baseball player, you're getting those reps in the spring or in the fall. As a pitcher, you have gosh, how many bullpens, how many inter squad games did he miss because he's out, on the football field? And so, to do this and only do it half the time or do it part time, I think is real difficult.
You got JT Quinn back this weekend, and thought he, for the most part, pitched pretty well. Had to really be careful, I guess, coming back from that oblique. What did you make of his return?
Well, I thought he was terrific, and really dominant. I think, not pitching for, close to, 4 weeks. I don't know the count, but it's got to be somewhere in that, 3 to 4 week range. And I think with so much emotion and so much riding on that final game, but he was kind of the, no pun intended, the shot in the arm that we needed there, to kind of bridge and, get a little deeper into the game. Dennis was terrific, but then we needed some outs, and then he got them. But you could tell, just kind of expended a little bit of too much emotion, but the emotions, I think, and the pitches just got to him. And so when he came out there for the third inning, he just was shot. And that's kind of the start of what Simmons, took on. But we certainly needed it. And, that's going to be a huge piece, in the bullpen going forward.
Visiting with Mike Bianco, head baseball coach at Ole Miss. Rebels went to Georgia this weekend, lost 2 of 3, won the third game of the series, and so had a little bit better feeling coming home from Athens. Big picture question here. Good news is you don't have to face Charlie Condon again unless it's in the postseason. When you are preparing, before you ever go to the ballpark, for how you pitch a guy that hits it as well as he does, how do you build the plan? How do you decide, okay, some situations, maybe we're going to put him on. Some situations, we're going to pitch to him. We're always going to be careful with him. And in terms of kind of putting that plan together.
Well, you look at him, and one, you don't even have to watch video and all of that, but obviously we do. And you try to, what's the way to get him out? And there really isn't a way to get him out. That's why he's going to play the big leagues, and that's why he's likely to be the first pick. He's the Dylan Cruz. He's that type of player where there's just not, you try to trick him, you try to get him to chase some pitches, but there's really just not a great way to pitch him, unless you got, a superstar on, Paul Skeens or somebody like that. And the truth is, we didn't really want to pitch to him. The problem is he's got a guy batting in front of him that's hitting about 400 with an on-base percentage close to 600. And the truth is, the batter in front of him got on, I think, 11 out of 15 or 11 out of 16 times, and 8 of them were either walks or HBPs. And so when the guy in front of him gets on, it's really hard to walk him. Because if you walk him, now you put a guy in scoring position, and then you got the 2 guys after him that are pretty good players too, and all they have to do is get a single. And so as great as Charlie Condon is, he's got 24, and he hit a few, and really in the time we wanted to walk him, it was okay to walk him or to try to get him to hit a pitch out of the zone. But that's how special he is, and it's frustrating, and I'm sure for the fans, you're like, hey, why do you pitch to him? Well, that's the reason. Is you got to be careful, because if we did intentionally walk him one time, and if the base is open, we would much rather walk him than let him hit. But we threw a 3-0 pitch, with nobody on off the plate that he hit for a double. There's only so much you could do. You can walk him every single time, but you also got to try to win the baseball game. And part of that is, the best way to be able to do it is to walk him, but you got to get the guy out in front of him. If not, now you have 2 guys on, and now you're trying to navigate through that.
Last thing for you, you never know exactly what the number of wins you need is for the postseason. History tells us 13 or 14, especially with the RPI that you've got. Are you having a conversation at all with your guys about, hey, this is what we've got to do over the final 4 weeks of conference play?
No, because there's great media like you, Richard, that will put it out there 100 times, and everybody else, and they'll break it down and show all the history from D1 baseball to Chase Parham and the rest of them. So, the truth is, I don't listen or watch or do any of that, but they do. And so it's no secret, and everybody knows. So the best thing you can do is just try to keep your nose down and just try to win the next game. And that's it seems, hey, that's coaches speak, but it's the truth. You're going to start counting wins and, checking them off. I mean, you can't do that. If you do that, you kind of get yourself in trouble. It's like the question of, is this a must win? Well, it's only a must-win when the season's over, and if you lose, and so the rest of it is just subjective in somebody's opinion. So, again, it sounds like coaches speak, but all the rest of it's a bunch of it's a bunch of garbage. You go out and you try to win that game, and whatever happens, you try to win the next game, and it's no secret to that.
Thanks for your time.